There is a plant that breaks almost every rule of modern gardening. You plant it once, and you may never have to plant it again. It survives brutal winters. It tolerates poor soil. It can out-yield potatoes in cold climates, and yet most people have never grown it. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? And what's the #1 crop you wish you could grow without replanting every year? Today I'm going to show you the perennial food crop hiding in plain sight that once helped people survive famine and war. Why it disappeared from most gardens, how to grow it step by step, and how to do it in a way that won't wreck your back or take over your whole yard. And stick with me, because near the end I'll explain the one mistake almost everyone makes with this plant, the mistake that gave it a terrible nickname and scared people away for generations. If you want a garden that feeds your grandchildren, not just your Instagram, this is for you. Food feels secure until it isn't. In the last few years we've seen empty shelves, price spikes, supply chains wobbling, extreme heat wiping out crops in one region, floods in another. Most of our modern food system depends on a handful of annual crops: corn, wheat, rice, soy, grown in massive monocultures that must be replanted every single year. Annual crops are like renters. If something goes wrong, they're gone. Perennials are homeowners. They dig in. There's a reason older generations often had insurance crops in their gardens. My own grandfather used to say, "Always grow something that doesn't need you." He meant fruit trees, berry bushes, and a strange, tall, sunflower-looking plant that came back no matter what. During both world wars, especially in parts of Europe, families survived harsh winters by digging up forgotten tubers when other crops failed. In North America, indigenous communities relied on certain native root crops as dependable staples long before European settlement. One of those crops is the plant we're talking about today, Helianthus tuberosus, commonly called the Jerusalem artichoke, sunchoke, or sunroot. And in a moment I'll explain why that confusing name helped bury it in history. Let's clear something up first. Jerusalem artichoke is not from Jerusalem, and it is not an artichoke. It's actually a species of sunflower native to eastern and central North America. The name likely evolved from the Italian word girasole, meaning sunflower, which English speakers gradually distorted into Jerusalem. There's no reliable historical evidence that it has any connection to the city of Jerusalem. What matters is this: it's a perennial sunflower that forms edible tubers underground. Above ground it grows tall, often 6 to 10 feet, with yellow flowers that look like small sunflowers. Below ground it produces knobby, irregular tubers that can be white, tan, pink, or purple depending on the variety. These tubers are edible raw or cooked. They're crisp like water chestnuts when raw and become soft and slightly sweet when roasted or boiled. And here's the powerful part: if you miss a tuber during harvest, even a small fragment, it will likely grow again the next season. That's not marketing hype. That's basic plant biology. The plant spreads through underground rhizomes and tubers. This is why some gardeners love it, and why others call it invasive. Historically, Helianthus tuberosus was cultivated by several indigenous peoples in North America long before European arrival. Early European explorers recorded it and brought it back to Europe in the 1600s. In parts of Europe, especially France, it became widely grown for a time. During both world wars, when food systems were disrupted, people often turned to hardy, locally grown crops like Jerusalem artichokes. It's important not to romanticize suffering. In places like France and the Netherlands during World War II, many people associated Jerusalem artichokes with hunger and hardship. After the war, some families refused to eat them again because they symbolized desperate times. That emotional memory matters, but from a survival gardening perspective, we can look at it differently. The very traits that made it a last resort food are exactly what make it powerful in a self-sufficiency garden. It tolerates cold. The tubers can survive freezing in the ground. It grows in relatively poor soils. It doesn't require replanting from purchased seed each year. It can produce substantial yields per plant under decent conditions. Research from agricultural trials shows that yields can be comparable to potatoes in some climates, though this varies greatly by soil, rainfall, and management. There is no single universal yield number. Local conditions matter enormously. But the key point is resilience. If you forget everything else, remember this. Resilient crops are insurance. Now let's get practical. If you're over 50, if your knees complain when you kneel, if you don't want to re-dig beds every year, this part is for you. Step 1. Choose the right location. Sunchokes prefer full sun. They will tolerate partial shade, but yields are usually lower. They can handle a wide range of soils, but well-drained soil is best. Heavy, waterlogged soil can cause tubers to rot. Step 2. Plant in early spring or late fall. You plant tubers, not seeds. Bury them about 3 to 5 inches deep and about 12–18 inches apart. Rows can be 2 to 3 feet apart. If bending is hard for you, use a long-handled bulb planter or a narrow shovel. Make a slit, drop the tuber in, close it with your foot. No need for perfection. Step 3. Minimal care. Once established, they need surprisingly little. Water during extreme drought if you want better yields, but they're more drought tolerant than many annual crops. They rarely need fertilizer if your soil has moderate fertility. Step 4. Harvest after frost. Wait until after the first frost when the tops die back. That's when tubers are sweetest. Dig what you need and leave the rest in the ground. Here's the lazy gardener's trick. Don't harvest all of them. Just take what you'll eat over the next week or two. The ground is your storage cellar, but and this is important, because they spread aggressively, it's wise to plant them in a contained area. A raised bed, a bordered section, or even large bottomless containers sunk into the ground can help keep them in check. In some regions of Europe, Jerusalem artichokes are considered invasive when unmanaged. Always check local guidance and be responsible. Now let's talk nutrition, carefully and honestly. Sunchokes are relatively low in calories compared to potatoes. About 70–75 calories per 100 grams. They contain potassium, small amounts of iron and magnesium, and some B vitamins. But their most unique feature is that instead of storing energy mainly as starch, they store it as inulin, a type of soluble fiber. Inulin is not digested in the small intestine. It travels to the colon, where gut bacteria ferment it. This can support beneficial bacteria like bifidobacteria. Some research suggests inulin may improve bowel regularity and support gut health. However, and this is critical, fermentation of inulin can produce gas. That's the famous problem. If someone eats a large serving without being used to it, they may experience bloating and flatulence. That's not a myth. It's well documented. Cooking longer can help break down some inulin into simpler sugars. Starting with small portions and gradually increasing intake allows your gut bacteria to adapt. If you have digestive conditions like IBS, you should consult a healthcare professional before consuming large amounts, because inulin can trigger symptoms in sensitive individuals. This plant is powerful, but it's not magic, and it's not for everyone in unlimited quantities. If this plant is so resilient, why don't we see fields of it everywhere? The answer isn't conspiracy. It's economics and logistics. Jerusalem artichokes produce irregular, knobby tubers. They're harder to wash and peel mechanically compared to smooth potatoes. They don't store as long in conventional warehouses. They mature unevenly. Industrial agriculture favors uniformity. Crops that ripen together, harvest easily with large machines, store for months, and ship long distances without damage. Sunchokes are stubbornly non-uniform. For a small home garden, that's fine. For a global supply chain feeding cities, it's complicated. There have been research efforts into using Jerusalem artichokes for animal feed, biofuel production, and specialty food markets. But they remain niche compared to major staple crops. That doesn't make them worthless. It makes them local. And local resilience is exactly what survival gardening is about. If this is helping you rethink your own garden strategy, tap like so more people can discover these forgotten crops. Now zoom out. Sunchokes should not be your only crop. No single plant should be your entire food security plan. But imagine this. A row of sunchokes along a fence line. A few fruit trees. Berry bushes underneath. Perennial herbs like thyme, sage, oregano. Maybe rhubarb or asparagus. Each year, without replanting, food returns. Your future self, the one with stiffer joints, will thank you. Plant perennials where you don't want to till, Use them as windbreaks or privacy screens. Sunchokes, especially, can form a seasonal living wall. But plan carefully. They can reach 8 feet tall and cast shade. Put them on the north side of your garden in the northern hemisphere so they don't block sun from shorter crops. Designed for the garden you can manage at 70, not just the one you can manage at 35. Remember the terrible nickname? Some people jokingly call them Artichokes. That reputation has probably done more to suppress this crop than anything else. The mistake is simple. People eat too much too fast. If you've never eaten them before, don't make a giant bowl of mashed sunchokes and expect your body to smile. Start small. Slice a few into soup. Roast a handful mixed with carrots and onions. Let your gut microbiome adjust over time. Also, cook them thoroughly if you're sensitive. Long roasting or simmering can reduce the inulin content somewhat by converting part of it into fructose. This one simple adjustment changes the experience entirely for many people. Knowledge matters, so here's the truth. We did not lose this plant. We just stopped paying attention to it. Helianthus tuberosus, the sunchoke, is not a miracle. It won't solve global hunger alone. It won't replace every annual crop. But it represents something bigger. A plant you don't have to replant. A crop that tolerates cold and imperfect soil. A food that grows quietly underground, waiting. If you forget everything else from this video, remember this. Build your garden around perennials first. Add resilient, low-maintenance crops that future you can still manage. Here's your simple first step. This week, research whether Jerusalem artichoke grows well in your specific climate zone. Check with your local extension service or experienced gardeners in your region. If it's suitable, order a small batch of tubers and plant just 3. See how they behave in your soil before you go bigger. And now tell me in the comments, would you try sunchokes in your garden, or have you already grown them? And what country are you watching from? If you want the next video to be about 10 edible weeds hiding in your lawn that could feed you in an emergency, comment weeds below. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who wants a garden that feeds their family. Not just for one season, but for decades. Because sometimes the strongest food security isn't in a warehouse. It's underground.